From the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, HEC-TV, Boeing, and the Danforth Center are proud to present Conversations, a discussion about biotech and the growth potential for the St. Louis workforce.
Good evening. Hi there, I'm Jim Knight, Chairman Emeritus of the Friends Committee, and I'm standing in for two people. I hope I can do that. One is Derek Rapp, who is Chairman of the Friends Committee, and the other is our wonderful friend member, Robin Frankel, who's unable to be here. This special evening, let's talk about ag biotech and the growth potential for our workforce in St. Louis area. And I want to thank Boeing for underwriting this event that we're enjoying in the AT&T auditorium. And I think all of you know that tonight is a special, not just because of the topic, but because of our friend, a wonderful member of the program committee, Alberta Slavin. And we'll hear more about Alberta as the program progresses. But she and I became very close friends as we worked together as volunteers at this great institution. On behalf of Dr. Danforth, Dr. Beachy, Jim Davis, our lead person here, and the wonderful panelists who have given their time to be here tonight, we welcome you and thank you all for coming to this very remarkable place. Tonight is interesting in another respect. This program is being recorded for presentation on television. And if you think it was fun now, you can hear it again when you leave. You can turn on your channel 26 if you're a charter customer. Every Tuesday night in June and July. That's a lot of listening and looking. And the other is channel 99 if you're an AT&T Universe customer. And it's sort of fun to think that if you pose a question, that you could be on TV. But the question program matter is there's a system tonight. You should have received a card on the way in. Everybody got a card? All right, that's your opportunity to write down questions and hand it to one of the very pleasant staff members that'll be in the aisles. And when those are sorted out, and we've given Mr. Davis, Dr. Davis, the opportunity to question the panel using those cards as a springboard, you are invited to ask questions by microphone. Please do not speak unless the microphone's in your hand or the recording won't receive it. So if you'll honor that, and the cards should be turned in within the next 35 or 40 minutes. We'll have another program in this auditorium later in August. I think it's August 27th. And we hope you'll be able to join us then. And many of you visited Bridge Park tonight. There will be an official opening of Bridge Park on June 16th. So it's great to have you here. And if you're not a friend of the center, we'd love to have you join us. Friends become friends, and I can't tell you how many of the faces out here that have become friends just because of our shared love of the remarkable vision that is in existence right here and with Bridge Park, which some of you may have visited tonight, opening up just next door. And of course, the visionary is our wonderful friend, Dr. William H. Danforth, Chairman Emeritus of Washington University, Chairman of the Board of the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. And Bill, where is he? There he is.
Jim, thanks very much. I would just like to express my appreciation for this wonderful turnout and congratulate the panelists on being so interesting as to have such a turnout. I would just am a little curious, how many of you visited our very exciting Bridge Park earlier? Oh, that's great. That's great. And those who haven't, I hope you'll have a chance to see it. It's one of the outgrowths. We don't own it, but it's one of the outgrowths of what we've been trying to do. Now, this session of our conversation series is dedicated to Alberta Slavin, who unfortunately died last October. She was an early friend. She tied into our center very early when we were starting out, helped us recruit other people to make donations to us and to join in our various activities. And she was on the committee that conceived this conversation series and got it started. So we thank her for that as well. Now, Alberta was much more than just a member of the Friends Committee of the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. She's also a wife, a mother. She's a community activist. She's best known for being working for consumer protection, particularly of the poor. But she really went beyond that. I think Alberta would see wrongs and set out to right them using the strength of her personality, her formidable organization and communication skills. And we're all very thankful for her. And while I've been talking, you've been reading this. We do have a resolution that was passed by the Board of Trustees of the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. And in a minute, I will read the resolution and then give a copy to Dr. Ray Slavin. And now I'd like to ask Roger Beachy and Ray to join me up here, and we'll have the presentation. Thank you. Now, it reads, whereas Alberta Slavin was an integral and inspiring member of the Danforth Center's Friends and Programs Committees from the inception of these important activities, which raised both financial support and awareness of the center and its role in improving the human condition. Whereas Ms. Slavin brought to these activities, as well as to her leadership and advocacy for consumers throughout the region, a wealth of energy, curiosity, and honesty. Ms. Slavin generously served as a journalist, a politician, and stalwart supporter of science and the arts throughout the St. Louis region. Even in illness, Alberta continued to serve others with dedication and selflessness. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, on behalf of the center's scientists, staff, administration, and volunteers, mourns the loss of Alberta Slavin and hereby declares our lasting gratitude to her. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be excuse me. Help. Thank you. Excuse me. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be presented to members of Alberta's family with the board's expression of sympathy, adopted this 7th day of May, 2009. Ray, thank you very much.
This is a truly wonderful tribute to Alberta. She loved this institution. She appreciated and truly believed in the mission. She very much enjoyed the staff, and of all the myriad of activities that she had, this was certainly one of her favorites. Somebody mentioned the conversations, and that was a particular love of hers, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that she was a consumer advocate, she was a consumer reporter, and she so wanted to educate the public. That was a main goal. There's an expression in Hebrew called tikkun olam, which means repairing the world, and that's what she did. So on behalf of the family, I certainly want to thank the whole Plant Science Center for this nice tribute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray, to you and the family, it really is it's especially a privilege for me to have to know in Alberta. As some of you know, Ray and Alberta lived about 50 yards from our house in Clayton, so they were the first people that we got to know in the region. And as we got to know her more and more, and as we told her about the mission of the center, it was easy for her to catch hold of the vision. She got it all the way. It wasn't part way for her, but she got it. And her interest in what we were doing was evident day to day. It was evident as we walked around the circle on Polo Drive, and as Linda got to know us and Terry. So I'm sorry that Terry can't be here tonight, but we are really pleased to have known her and wish you and the family all the best. Thank you. Our program tonight is like Alberta, special because it talks about about the third anchor of the mission of the Danforth Center. It's not only that we should do outstanding research, that we should use our science to improve the health and nutrition of people, to benefit the environment, and to make the world a better place. But part of the vision that was set out for us by the board on Bill's interests and instructions in some way was to use this science to benefit the region as a hub, a center for plant science that would grow economics in the region. In other words, not only should we do good science, but it should be relevant, and that relevance should turn into products. That product should be something that encourages the growth of economics in the St. Louis region. Tonight we have the opportunity to hear more about that as Jim Davis introduces the panel in just a few minutes. I've seen firsthand that, in fact, the Danforth Center has made a difference. We've managed through the collaborations of our scientists, chosen because they fit certain missions that we have, the involvement of our science with the company Divergence, a brand new startup company that started about the same time we did, living in Nidus Center, and we have collaborations with them. We also have collaborations with Monsanto, the giant across the street, but also with small companies from India, from small companies in California and on the East Coast. The science that we do here does matter, but increasingly, as we've attracted the attention of science companies, some have moved from other places to St. Louis. Others have grown because of the collaborations that are here, and we are really pleased that has happened. And tonight we're going to hear a little bit more about what the future might be. I would say that I'd like you to watch the newspaper in about June 12 or 13 for a special announcement of the first spin-out company that will come from the Danforth Center activities. So we're attracting, we're creating, we're stimulating the economy in the St. Louis region, and we're pleased tonight to talk more about the bigger vision that those individuals on the stage have. Jim, our fearless leader in this discussion, there's nobody to explain better to us what happens, whether it's in water management or in economic growth and development, than Jim Davis, formerly now a professor emeritus from Washington University and our stellar conversations leader. Jim, the time is yours. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Well, I'm delighted to welcome this, I think, record-breaking audience to what promises to be an interesting, important, stimulating, maybe even provocative conversation that will bring together, I hope, the economy, employment, and I don't know whether to say biotech or plant science or ag biotech, but you get the idea. And the economy and employment are linked to those. To help me start the conversation tonight are three people well placed to understand those topics. To my immediate right is Sarah Perkins, who is Vice President for Academic Affairs at Florissant Valley Community College She's responsible for about 10,500 square feet in Bridge Park, which will bring education to where much of the research is going on, and I find that a very exciting development. In addition to being the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Sarah is also the lead administrator at Flow Valley for plant science and biology. She's well placed to be here and can talk about what's happening in the employment market. Next to Sarah is Joe Schlafly, who is Senior Vice President at Stifel Nicolaus and also Director of Private Marketing. He's interested in things like venture capital to help startups, to help start new ventures that may grow from research results made here produced here in the Plant Science Center. And on my far right is Denny Coleman, who is President and Chief Executive Officer of the St. Louis County Economic Council, interested in and very knowledgeable about the St. Louis County and the St. Louis region economy. We couldn't have three better conversationalists. I look at their credentials, and you can see more about these panelists on the program. I've given them very brief introductions. I look at their credentials, and I wonder why I'm here. But there we are. Let me start with sort of an overarching question for all three of you. Daily, we pick up the paper and see troubling economic news. Then we read really bad news about the automotive industry and the closing of plants in Fenton. There's worry about the continued production of Boeing C-17. Manufacturing generally is in decline. A bright star, I think, is biotech. What can biotech do in terms of stimulating the economy and providing employment? And let me put that in a somewhat different way. When a lot of people think of an assembly line, they think of jobs. When they think of a research lab, they may think of a research lab. How does that research lab or those research labs connect to jobs and the economy? Each of you may see it connecting differently.
Before you look down here to the economic developer guy, first of all, I want to thank the Danforth Center for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's really an honor to be part of this very distinguished program that you have here. So thank you very much. It's a great question, and coming on the heels of spending part of my day following the Chrysler bankruptcy, trying to figure out how we get in to see representatives from Fiat, trying to sell the fact against quite a tide that we have a good plant here and good workers who could still make automobiles. Then it's opposite ends of the spectrum to come here and to be part of a program talking about the plant sciences, ag sciences, and what that means to the future of St. Louis County and the St. Louis region is really very rewarding and very promising. To give you an idea, there are about 400 firms and institutions who deal in the plant and life sciences in the St. Louis metropolitan area, employing about 20,000 people. That's about the same number of manufacturing jobs that we lost from 1995 to 2005. And so the job growth in plant and life sciences has been very significant. Just as significant is the fact that those jobs are across a very broad spectrum of employment. When people think of labs and scientific jobs, they think of only those scientists working at very high salary levels. And while that's true, and that really helps drive a significant part of our economy, there is also a broader spectrum of jobs that supportive jobs to those scientists that are involved here too. And I'm sure Sarah's going to talk about more about that in a minute and some of her great training programs. So I think we have a great potential to drive more jobs through entrepreneurship, through the investments that Joe's company and others like him are making, through our giant companies like Monsanto and Bunge and others in this community. We have a great history of employment in this arena, and the history is even brighter because of the work that's being done here at the Plant Science Center.
Joe?
I would, and thanks very much for the opportunity to be here, and I want to thank the Slavin family so much. Alberta was one of the earliest investors by virtue of her role with the Missouri Foundation for Health, as you know, that she dedicated a lot of her time to, and they were an early supporter as an institution, so I want to thank you very much for that. If one looks at what it spurs great industries and areas, it's all about innovation and creation of what's known in the business as disruptive or major technology. When you think of the history of the Industrial Revolution, and I don't want to be too broad here, but Henry Ford and the automobile that gave birth to the entire Industrial Revolution in America, of which 50 years was right around us here, and the automobile industry, of course, being one of the, I think we're the second or third largest manufacturer.
We're second.
Second, yeah, and in the automobile, and that will come back, but in some form. The incredible thing about this whole effort in ag bio and in agricultural technology and nomenclature is difficult, but science is that there will be breakthroughs, and they're being made today, that will lead to major commercial activity, just as the Ford, when he came up with that, led to that whole industry and all the spin-off industries I think you were referring to. There are about 2.5 jobs for every job, and I think you're the expert, but I think it's about 2.5 to 1 on one job. Is that about right, Denny? But one job in this field of so it's a scientist who comes out, but then 2.5 jobs are created by virtue of other activities. It's much like the auto suppliers who came up over the years here. The same thing is happening. Law, accounting, a securities industry, which we're part of, the investment banking, manufacturing processes, clinical trials and various things at our hospitals. There's an enormous ripple effect from scientists then going into companies. And so I think that that's a huge factor. But amazingly enough, and Bill's timing is incredible in the centers, is that energy and the energy mixed with agriculture last year, we all saw it in a huge way. And I think that really was a collision, because we were trying to solve energy problems at the same time as using crops, which led to this huge problem. The center stands at the very fulcrum of the work that's going to happen, I hope and believe, to help solve that problem. And by that I mean is that the center is all about creating greater production of crops in this country and around the world, and the demand is going to be pushed by energy issues, as well as a whole host of other things. And you've dealt with that in other conversations. And at the same time, the need or the ability to do that is lessening because of arable land. And so fixing the energy problem, venture capitalists believe it's about 6 times more interesting and has more growth than the internet. Now you think about, well, is the internet a disruptive technology? I think everyone agrees that it is. But when one thinks about solving the energy problem in this world, and whether it's Kleiner Perkins or other people, people believe that it's about 6 times as valuable, the market, and as important as the internet was. And I think we stand at the fulcrum of that because of what's going on here, and not only from a legacy standpoint, but the research that's going on. We can talk further about that, but it's all about coming up with disruptive technology, which is then able to be supported by capital, by people, by facilities, and all the things that come together, workforce at all these different levels.
And will we have the workforce, Sarah?
Correct.
Will we have the workforce?
We will. We
Thanks
will.
to you, right?
We will, and we do. I also want to thank the Danforth Plant Science Center for having this conversation, because it's really important. When I first came to St. Louis Community College 10 years ago, one of the first people I met actually was Dr. Beachy, and it was at the groundbreaking. And the first question that Dr. Beachy asked was about the workforce. What are you doing about the workforce? St. Louis Community College had started actually a biotechnician workforce program 10 years ago and has been growing that program. Actually, it's at a point now where it's been recognized by the state and across the nation for the work that we've been doing. But in answer to the question about what's happening in the St. Louis area, because of the vision and the strength and the foundation of the Danforth Plant Science Center, of the companies that are growing in the St. Louis area, along with that grows a demand for a workforce. Who are the people who are actually in those laboratories carrying out the research for the PhD scientists? St. Louis is actually well positioned for growing that workforce. St. Louis has a very strong science education. What we're able to do and what's important to do to help keep moving this mission forward is to increase the access across all socioeconomic spectrums of the St. Louis metropolitan area to good foundational education in math, science, engineering, and technology. From that foundation, we work with both high school direct students as well as people who may have been out in the workforce but want to come back and get retraining. But to develop the skills and knowledge of the instrumentation, of good lab practices, to be able to support the growth that's happening in the plant and agri business that's occurring in St. Louis. So we are able, actually, at St. Louis Community College at this point, over 90% of the students who are in our programs get jobs. So what does that tell us? It tells us that my friends here are doing a great job of growing the plant and life sciences in St. Louis. It also tells us that we have the people here. They just need access to education and training.
Do you get a specific question for the community college? Are you getting many people to come back who have become unemployed thanks to bankruptcies of Chrysler and maybe General Motors, people who've been in other closed manufacturing industry and now see biotech as a new career opportunity?
Absolutely. We get both. We get our students come to us from all sorts of different areas, but certainly people who have been laid off, who have science backgrounds or they want to develop science backgrounds will come to the community college. We also have probably half of our students are actually people who have their baccalaureate degrees, but they need more time in a lab to actually have more time with the instrumentation. So they'll come back for a certificate program and to get the specific kinds of training. We also work very closely with partners all across the St. Louis area, so if there are specific training needs, we work with them also. And we'll get into this more later, I'm sure, but for us, our move here to the Bridge Park is expanding our capabilities. We are actually at capacity with our laboratories, and we need more space because the demand is actually growing.
You're at capacity at Flow Valley.
We're at capacity at Flow Valley.
And being here, I should think both enriches the program because you have so much research going on here, but it also allows the program to expand?
Absolutely. If you got a chance to go through the Bridge Park, St. Louis Community College has 10,500 square feet on the first floor. When you walked in the front door, we are the right half of the first floor building. That's allowing us to put in 2 laboratories for biotechnology and plant science, a biomanufacturing lab, and some support research. And that will tremendously expand our capacity to train the workforce, as well as be able to work collaboratively with the Danforth Plant Science Center and with the companies that are actually in the Bridge Park. So we're really excited about that. It'll give our students real life experience, real internship type opportunities there in the Bridge Park.
Will students go either, one last question for you and then I want to move back to other guests, but will students go back and forth between Flow Valley and here so everyone gets some experience in a real research lab? Or will some students come here and some students go to Flow Valley and the two don't meet?
They'll all meet.
Okay. On commencement day, right?
Hopefully before that. You know, this is a wonderful location for the St. Louis area right here. And this is actually, for us at St. Louis Community College with our 4 campuses, Wildwood, Merrimack, Forest Park, and Flow Valley, this is actually centrally located. So students would be able to take their beginning introductory classes at the campus, wherever at their campus. They might come to Flow Valley to take some of their more advanced courses. But our upper end laboratories will be right here. Okay. And we have a National Science Foundation grant to help support us in starting a contract research organization. So I do think we're stepping out there. We're one of the first in the nation, if not the first in the nation, to actually embed our biotechnology, plant technology programs right in where companies are actually working, where research is actually taking place. We'll be able to have real research projects that our students would be working on that would also be benefiting the growth of the research and the companies in the area. It's really a first in the nation.
Now, I find that very exciting, but I'm also troubled by the good news, quotes around good news, I see coming out of California and now North Carolina. There's competition in this country. Can we, in the heartland, compete effectively in the biotech area against the coasts? Davis gets a lot of money. North Carolina, I've read some articles about the amount of money that's come from the state to help biotech. San Diego is an exciting place. Will people flock to St. Louis to work in biotech?
Yeah, can I take that for a second? Yeah, great. It's really interesting how that works. Take San Diego. Everybody goes, oh, San Diego, this, that. San Diego was in deep trouble after the cutbacks in the defense spending, particularly as a Navy town. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, what are we going to do about this? And sure, and it goes to the point about graduating or so from one industry to another. And they said, well, we've got a lot of naval-trained electronics experts. And that gave birth to Qualcomm, which many of you may know, one of the huge companies there, which then spun out into a whole other group of companies. And so that was sort of the beginning. And then the Scripps Institute, which Roger knows well, and other things happened. But that was sort of the genesis for the sort of, quote, San Diego explosion. And they had access to venture capital because they were fairly close to Silicon Valley. But the only reason Silicon Valley was there, a lot of people give Stanford credit, was a company called Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard's the father or the grandfather of that. And here, I'm not going to say Monsanto is, I think it's the whole legacy. We're even better off. We have a whole legacy of enormously competent companies, which has kind of been together here and at Washington University Medical Center and around this town. And so I don't think we have anything to worry about, really, about, oh, there's a lot of competition. We're not winning right now.
Why?
Because we don't have any capital. We've not been a risk-taking growth capital recently. This whole community was built on taking risk when you go back to the history of St. Louis. And so I think that's changing. I think as soon as we see some real, and a lot of times comes down to the money, when some people make a lot of money, as they did coming out of Hewlett-Packard and the various companies there, Sun Microsystems, that starts to move around and you have successes. And successes breed more successes because others, and the capital is drawn to success. Our success is going to come from solving energy and agricultural problems of real significance which can be commercialized. And then people, it's going to do great things as technology has for the world, as we are for the starvation, but it's going to also make a lot of money for a lot of people.
I think another aspect to me about what is so strong about St. Louis is the collaborative nature of all the parties involved. I think one of the strengths here in St. Louis is that the companies are talking to each other, the universities, the high schools, the community college, research, we talk to each other, and I think that's another strength to actually be able to build. And in working in the energy field that's really important. It's the collaborative effort actually across our region.
There's no question the people at Harvard won't speak to the people at MIT. It's documented, and maybe it's changed a little bit, I doubt much. And we do have an enormous, for example, Washington University here, and then you have the enterprise energy. I mean, we're at the heart of the coal country. Right. I mean, coal is with us. It's going to be, we're going to find a way, and you know you are, Roger, we're going to find a way to take that CO2 and pull it out. And so these are the things where that collaboration comes in. This is the coal capital.
You said blow out CO2. I thought we were going to put it underground.
Sequestration?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
I think we have to play to our strengths. We clearly have some weaknesses that Joe just articulated in terms of significant availability of venture capital. But I think we have to play to our strengths. Science is a strength. Facilities are beginning to be a strength. In addition to Bridge Park, we're attempting to purchase and get some of the federal economic stimulus money to even provide a pre-feeder incubation facility so that the companies aren't quite ready for Bridge Park, have a place to go. We should know more about that in the next couple of months. I think the Ag Forum that the Science Center just hosted was a tremendous success. It was a success in and of itself, but when you consider it was a first effort along those lines, and the nature of the venture capitalists who were here, the companies that were drawn to come to St. Louis to present their case for investments in front of these national investors was extraordinarily impressive. And so the money doesn't have to all come from here. It would be helpful if we had more of it investing in these kinds of higher risk kinds of companies. But when you have a location like this, you can draw in both money and companies, as well as the continued level of high scientific endeavor that's going on here. That is our strength. We would be greatly enhanced if the state of Missouri would start to invest in this effort, as I believe they should. We have been somewhat hindered by the fact that any discussion of plant and life sciences has gotten bogged down for all kinds of reasons in the issues of embryonic stem cell research and other kinds of things. If we could create a better coalition with Kansas City about animal sciences and plant sciences and drop the contentious issues for the time being, I think we could start to make a bigger and bigger niche into getting the state to help support it. That is going to be a key. Absent that, we've got to go with what we have, which is significant.
Let me illustrate what you just said about the role of the potential role of the state. This is an article from an Economist magazine that came out in April this year. It talks about North Carolina. It talks about the decline of textiles and furniture and so on. North Carolina is finding a new course. The state has invested more than $1.2 billion in biotechnology in the past 10 years between facilities, research, training programs. The efforts have paid off. North Carolina now has 54,000 people working in 500 biotech companies. It's considered the third largest biotech center in the country after California and Massachusetts. I would love to see an article about Missouri in The Economist in, 5 years, 10 years? What future do you see?
I'll settle for my lifetime.
But you're a young man.
Well, I think that the effort's going to have to be very substantial across a broad spectrum of the local political elected officials, the MoBio group, which is trying and succeeding and starting to succeed in educating a number of the legislators in the state of Missouri as to the potential here. I think the more of the folks that we can get here to see this facility and Bridge Park and others and see this potential for success, I think that's going to pay dividends. I think we started to see that in terms of the funding for the Missouri Technology Corporation. We've started to see it in terms of the allocation of some of the federal stimulus money into some of the projects that we need funded. But it's going to take a lot of effort on a lot of people's part to get us to anywhere near that level of support.
Let me turn now to questions beginning to come from the audience. And here's one for you, Sarah. How does a person who worked on an assembly line get retrained to work in the biotech field? Specifically, What jobs do you envision these individuals who are not scientists, engineers, mathematicians, or techies being able to find? Is there a place in the industry for today's blue-collar worker? My answer is probably yes, but what's your answer?
My answer is yes. And actually, the community college, we're working very hard with what we call bridge programs. And that would be to help people who might not have a science or math background at the college level be able to take classes or be in programming that would help prepare them to be able to move into the biotech program. We've been working with the Met Center for the last few years with chronically underemployed individuals and designed a 12-week intensive program to help those individuals be able to work at very introductory level in laboratories and get them used to being able to be in those spaces and to be able to work their way around those laboratories, develop more of an interest in math and science, keep taking classes that will help increase and develop their math science skills so that then they can get into these biotechnology programs.
I might add, too, that some of the people who are being laid off out of these manufacturing, and automotive is a good example, have multiple years of benefits under their past contracts where they can still be garnering a reasonable amount of financial support while they prepare for a new career. In our history of the significant defense layoffs that occurred during the 1990s, we lost 60,000 defense jobs in this community, and yet came out of that experience more diversified and stronger than we went into it. 2/3 of those laid off people got jobs at or above their former salary levels, and 10% of those people started their own companies. So the seeds of what we're seeing as a real problem here can actually be planted to grow the new industries and careers of the future.
Here's a question that was on my mind, too. The global recession how is the global recession affecting startups, collaborative ventures, and corporate acquisitions in the ag space? How are market forces and government funding impacting the future for innovation in plant and life sciences? So it's the global recession and then market and government funding. That sounds like a question for you, Joe, but...
yeah, I'll take a shot at the second part and then leave the first for Denny. No.
The global recession,
The new president has really given life to, not just through the stimulus bill, but given new life to federal funding for a number of areas. The NIH is going to be restored to at least a level, if not just a little uptick. It has been sort of on a net basis declining. The Department of Energy, it was just thrilling to see a $35 million grant just came to, half I think came to the center and half to Washington University from Department of Energy. It wasn't even stimulus money with respect to enormously positive work going on here, again, on this energy area I was referring to earlier. And so I'm very optimistic about the trends in terms of federal funding for our efforts, and I think particularly in the area of energy. Many people don't know it, and Dr. Danforth won't mention it, but I think the Department of Agriculture has changed and created a new division. Amazingly, there's no NIH or equivalent of an FDA or NIH in the Department of Agriculture, and that's now going to get some funding and move forward. So I think that's very positive. The global recession, the equity meltdown, has hurt the ability of pension funds, endowments, and others to invest in private equity, so they're moving away. So that's caused an even a greater need for some public monies coming in. The state will pass, we hope, next year a very strong bill. I was very disappointed this year. They got actually the stem cell, I mean, I'm on the front there fairly often, is passé. It is not an issue. We have to always be vigilant, but the General Assembly is aware that that's really, we got to move on. The key issue there is really an ideological one about whether public money should go into this type of thing, period. And I think we'll win. And we will adopt some legislation called the Missouri Reinvestment Act.
The only thing I'd say about the issue of the global recession, borrowing some words from an industrialist from a prior century, he said, profits are made during good times, fortunes are made during bad. If you happen to be smart enough or lucky enough to go into this downturn with a lot of cash, as some of our hometown companies have done, they can and will emerge even stronger with more of a global share of the market. And companies like Monsanto that were well prepared for this downturn are still doing extraordinarily well. So it's clearly going to be mixed results. The smaller companies could very well be hurt on a short-term basis. But again, the seeds for the next revival are planted at times like this as bright minds and well-educated people and capital and management come together in unprecedented numbers to form the next growth spurt.
Yeah, I want to just add to it that you know, this is an opportunity. This is really the time where we prepare for coming out of this recession. And it is the time for being able to use opportunities for education, to retool, to rethink about the kinds of skills and education one would need to keep moving forward as the economy around them changes. And so absolutely, this is the time to actually prepare for the turnaround.
Another way somebody put it once was never waste a good recession.
Yeah.
and I think Missouri, we have the #1, even though they're tough down there, we have the #1 balance sheet in the United States. California is a disaster. New York is just a complete disaster. We know about Illinois, it's even closer. This is the time for Missouri, so I agree totally that now's the time to seize it and jump back into the game, because our competition or the coast, but also globally. And I think the worldwide recession is actually a real opportunity for this area of the country where values and not a lot of debt and ethics and, you know, kind of things that we think are pretty important, which seem to have been forgotten elsewhere, are important, and that's what we can take advantage of.
Denny, this question's for you. It's another competitive kind of question. Research parks exist in many places across the nation. What are the special advantages of locating Bridge Park on the Danforth Plant Science Center campus? That might be a question for Sam Fiorello also, but he's not on the panel.
That's right. Sam's got all those answers memorized, I'm sure, and it's part of his pitch and marketing effort. But clearly, the proximity to the Danforth Plant Science Center, and not only the science and the scientists that are here, the greenhouse and the growth chamber and all the great technological advancements that are here in terms of the equipment and whatnot is extraordinary. Quite frankly, the educational attainment level. St. Louis County has more college graduates than any other county in the state of Missouri. From a quality of life standpoint, if you take relative wealth as a measure of quality of life, St. Louis County's per capita income average is just about $50,000. So there's wealth, there's education, there's quality of life, there are facilities, there is science, there are many, many advantages that we have to sell here, not only as a county, but obviously as a region. We have phenomenal quality of life here. And so I think as we get a little less shy, as a lot of St. Louisans are, we don't like to brag about ourselves, I think we'll spread the word that this is a great place to locate for exactly those kinds of minds and companies.
And Joe, here's a question for you. What are the key issues for the venture capital community and for corporate investors? How can Bridge Park help new businesses be best prepared for this marketplace?
I think that the venture capital community really got started. It has two major parts. And one, it's really exciting and relevant to that is that we have 3 or 4 very established venture capital firms now here on the ground in the St. Louis region. And that's crucial because early stage investing is highly risky, and it is very, very important to syndicate, collaborate, to go back to, with many others, because to take the risk of one entity doing it, we call it silo investing, is doomed to disaster. Toledo has had problems with that. There are many, many examples in economic development areas where venture capital in a vacuum doesn't work. We have venture capitalists here, but more importantly, they have very strong contacts with the coastal VCs internationally. So for every dollar that's actually put in here, we get about $8 in money imported. Normally, St. Louis has been a great exporter of capital to our detriment. We've exported to the coast over the last generations for a while. Now we're starting to import it through this. And so I think from a venture capital standpoint, if we have a bridge park, if we have great science that's disruptive, not just a me too, if we have the people who are there, all these things, then the venture capital money will come here, and that's why we need a winner.
And for Sarah, this question: what's unique about locating a biotech workforce lab training program within a research park? And a specific question: what kind of salary will St. Louis Community College Plant and Life Science program graduates earn with a 2-year degree?
Okay, let me do the money first. That's a big one. You know, our graduates with a 2-year degree, their first jobs will be anywhere from the low 30s to mid 40s in their starting jobs. If a student has come to us and they already have a bachelor's or a master's degree, they're coming back for a certificate, it can be anywhere in that range up to $50,000 or more, so very good starting jobs. What's unique about locating workforce training in Bridge Park? Well, we are actually not just doing on-site training. What's unique about it is that our degree program is actually will be part of the facility over there. So our students will be actually working with real scientists, people who will be having collaborative efforts with other companies that are actually in Bridge Park, as well as the Plant Science Center, Monsanto. And with this CRO, which we're calling BioBench, the BioBench will allow the community college students to be working on real projects for startup companies. That's actually one way of helping. One thing that the community college can do is to give access to equipment that a small startup may not have otherwise, to be able to do projects for them, and that in turn gives the students real experience on real projects. And that's all unique. It'll allow a nice give and take between scientists being able to work with our students or with our projects, doing teaching on site, as well as, again, the collaborative efforts. I mean, I think collaboration is a way of being really able to take our strengths and make them even better. And for example, we are already partnering with Washington University and University of Missouri St. Louis on 2 other grants that they're putting in. So it actually allows us to be able to give our students a real work experience, and in high-tech labs. Our labs are equipped with the kind of equipment that our students would see if they were working in a company lab. So it gives them all that experience. And
high value, and it's relatively unique still in this country. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. And in fact, the company that we've been working with is so intrigued with this. The idea has already been spread to the East Coast to do this. Is having workforce training, and it gives our students experience, but it also allows us, if there's a project that there's some specialized training that needs to happen with the workforce that's already there, they can come to us, and we would be able to help with that also.
I still have some written questions, but in the last few minutes, I'm willing to take 1 or 2 from the floor. My boss said 2. So does anyone have a question out there? There's one hand up. Good. There's the mic.
Hi, Barbara Wilhelm Lips with Outreach, Biotech Outreach. One of the things I've really been impressed with, Denny, about the St. Louis County Development Program is how supportive you are of helping those companies who have a lot of patent applications. And I know that you have been awarded in the past, the county's been awarded for how many their per capita come out of the county. And I wanted to ask you, how does that apply to this industry, the ag biotech industry, and progressing it into more of the business development in that regard?
Well, first of all, Barbara, thank you. A couple of things. First of all, our county executive, Charlie Dooley, has a favorite saying of his that anytime he's in the same place as Bill Danforth, he knows he's in the right place. And Charlie's sense is that this is, tonight we're not just figuratively but literally in Dr. Danforth's space, but we're all in a sense in his space looking at this entrepreneurial development of this great science that's being created here. There's an entrepreneurial climate in St. Louis County. We've talked about some of the limitations, but the county is the leading county in the state of Missouri in terms of new business starts. We have about another 50% higher than Jackson County, which is Kansas City, and 3 to 4 times as high as some of the other major counties in the region and across the state. So you do have money here. You do have an entrepreneurial sense here. It needs to grow, but it's much better than what it was. It wasn't that long ago that maybe the best and the brightest were going into some of our major corporations, and they still are, but there are more and more people looking at careers in entrepreneurship. And those supportive industries that Joe talked about in law and accounting and in other services are growing up along with that culture. And so we're growing it. It's never as fast as we want, but we're growing it, and it's growing faster in this industry sector because of the care and the planning and the bright people who are all centered around this type of effort here. I just want to say one final thing. As an economic developer, it is always a dream to sell what you're best at. And I hope everybody in this room has a real sense of the fact that you're supporting the best in the world here. We don't often have an opportunity to touch and feel and be a part of something this special. This place, this effort is special, and it deserves all of our continued support to make sure that we tell the world about it and bring the world here so they can see it in person.
Mm-hmm.